today. UFC 324 is finally upon us. Finally, we have the first show of the Paramount Era. Finally, we get to test out what Paramount has paid 7 point whatever billion for to acquire the UFC rights. Finally, we're going to see the long-awaited fight between Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje, a fight that we have clamored for years. Plus, what about the epic clash that we've wanted for the last 3 years between Sugar Sean O'Malley and Song Yadong? All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt, and we are here to talk about UFC 324, which goes down this Saturday, T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas. I believe a slightly earlier start time by maybe like an hour or so. And I know I'm joking about it, but we finally got MMA action back, so I ain't hating on it. But in the main event, we have Paddy Pimblett challenging Justin Gaethje for the interim lightweight championship of the world. So, let's get down to it. Let's say the obvious off the top. We would rather this be Ilia Topuria defending his championship against one of these men. And we'd probably rather it be Ilia Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan. But at the same time, that's not what we're getting. Instead, we have Paddy Pimblett stepping in there with Justin Gaethje for the interim championship, while Ilia Topuria irons out whatever's going on in his personal life with his ex, and hopefully gets back to defending his championship later this year against one of these two men, possibly at the White House show. Let's get off into it. I ain't gonna hold you. I've gone back and forth over who's gonna win this main event. And a lot of my back and forth, I had to realize, is from being an older fan and knowing the legacy of Justin Gaethje. Right? Because there was a point in time in which if you said they're gonna sign Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett, who do you think's gonna win? Nobody would have took Paddy Pimblett. That's just being honest. But as we see with a lot of fighters, like your Dominic Reyes, your Justin Gaethje's in this case, your Dustin Poirier's, a lot of your guys that made it all the way to that point but could never quite capture the championship. You can go back in the day and look at Carlos Condit. You know what I'm saying? There's been a ton of these fighters that made it to that point but could never capture the championship. Donald Cerrone's another one that just popped in my head. And in my opinion, I feel like for all sports, whether it's football, basketball, whatever, I feel that sometimes, you're seeing it right now with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Sometimes, I hope not, but one could argue for my quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens. But it's like, bro, sometimes some of these athletes make it to the top of that mountain only to be one rung, one step, one more climb away from achieving their ultimate goal of being the champion. So you're looking at Justin Gaethje. This would be his second time being an interim champion if he wins this fight. And I feel that for a lot of these people, there's only so many times you can climb to the very top of the mountain and be on that last step and get knocked all the way down, and you're able to pick yourself back up and climb up to the top of that mountain. So with that being said, I feel like we've kind of seen Justin Gaethje reach his limit. I'm not saying he's washed. He's still an extremely talented fighter. But I feel that for some fighters, and that's what separates the greats from the really goods, is the greats are, no matter how many times they're knocked down, they're going to figure out a way to get back to the top, and there's still something left in them to take that last step. But I don't feel like Justin Gaethje has that left in him, because he's had multiple opportunities and he hasn't quite succeeded yet. And when you're looking at the other side, you got Paddy Pimblett, who's been counted out his entire career. He had a tough road just to make it in the UFC. Yeah, he was flying high for a while on the amateur region, you know what I'm saying, on the amateur circuit. And I believe he was fighting for LFA, I want to say, for a while. I think that was the company. Could be in a different one. No, it was Cage Warriors. He's fighting for Cage Warriors, and he was already supposed to be here. He started taking losses in Cage Warriors, but he bounced back. He then eventually made it to the UFC, and he's been counted out his entire career in the UFC, including myself. I've counted him out a few times. But what I've realized is the dude keeps excelling, he keeps getting better, and we keep counting him out, and he keeps proving everyone wrong. And so when I'm looking at this, Paddy Pimblett, if he's going to try to stand with Justin Gaethje the entire 5 rounds, then for sure Justin Gaethje's going to figure out a way to win this fight. Justin Gaethje's fighting style is he generally bombards his opponents with a ton of concussive blows. And over the course of 3 rounds or 4 rounds, it's too much for that opponent to withstand. So sometimes he gets a finish, but most of the time he beats their brains in for 3 or 5 rounds, and the fight's over, and he's declared the winner. He doesn't really need a stoppage to do that. But with Paddy Pimblett, even though he's touting that he's going to go in there and stand and strike with Justin Gaethje, I just don't see that happening. With Paddy, I feel like probably what you're going to get is he's going to definitely stand, but he's going to use that stand-up to kind of give Justin Gaethje this false sense of security, like, man, this dude's really going to try to stand with me. He really wants to stand with the all-violence fighter of all time, except for the year that I lost to Eddie Alvarez. Like, he's really going to try to stand with me. And then I think when Justin really starts trying to implement his stand-up game, Pimblett's going to take him down. Pimblett's an extremely good grappler. While Justin Gaethje is supposed to have this wrestling pedigree, we never really see it on display, hardly ever. You know what I'm saying? He finally went for a takedown against Rafael Fiziev. I think that Paddy Pimblett is so good at grappling, and he's so good at looking for your neck and cinching that up and tapping guys or putting them to sleep. I think that's what we're going to see here. I don't know if he finishes Justin Gaethje, but I definitely think he could win a 5-round decision by controlling him on the ground, staying one step ahead of him on the grappling side of it, and probably going for a few submission attempts, but only to keep Justin on his toes. But I don't think he's officially going to just empty out the gas tank trying to get Justin Gaethje to tap, because I'm not sure how easy that'll be. Granted, I mean, we saw what happened with Khabib, but let's be honest, that's Khabib Nurmagomedov. That's a whole different story than a Paddy Pimblett's type of wrestling or submission pressure. So I think Paddy Pimblett wins this fight. I think he becomes the interim champion of the world, and I hope that Ilia Topuria irons out whatever's going on in his personal life, and he comes back to defend that championship against Paddy Pimblett. The two have a history. They even, they got into a real physical altercation at some point earlier in their careers in the UFC. I don't know where it was at, but it was at some place, and they got into it, right? But at that time, Ilya was at 145, Paddy's at 155, and we all thought we would never see them meet. Well, the time is now. And I think on Saturday night, Paddy Pimblett gets the job done. He defeats Justin Gaethje, and he goes on to hopefully face Ilia Topuria while we got Arman Tsarukyan waiting in the wings. That's my pick. Let's move on. How about the co-main event? Originally, we were supposed to get Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison, which was the fight I really wanted to see. But instead, we're going to get Sugar Sean O'Malley stepping in the octagon with Song Yadong. I mean, what do you want, man? This is Sean O'Malley all day. I'm not saying Song Yadong is not a talented fighter. I'm not saying that he can't beat Paddy Pimblett. I'm sorry, Sugar Sean O'Malley. But the reality is, let's put some respect on Sugar Sean's name, right? You know, Sean O'Malley kind of had that early Conor kind of vibes where you're watching this guy fight. You know he's a talented fighter. You know that he's good. But you also know there's many a buzzsaw in the division that if Conor ran up against early in his career when he was fighting, who knows? You know what I'm saying? When he's fighting the Diego Brandows and people like that, that there was a point where you're watching Conor McGregor and you're like, if he steps in the octagon with some of these guys, it's a wrap for him. It's a wrap. That's how we felt about Sean O'Malley. But much like when we all thought Jose Aldo was going to do Conor dirty, the same thing. We've seen Sean O'Malley get locked in there with guys like Aljamain Sterling that we were for sure he was going to take an L to, and he came out victorious. So I think it's time to put some respect on his name. We've seen him take 2 losses in a row, but let's be honest, that's against the bantamweight GOAT Merab. And also, this is a rejuvenated Sean, because you have to look at it from this perspective. If you're a guy that would be the number 1 person in a division and be the champion and be able to rule for as long as you wanted, or as long as until you got signed in there with Umar Namajunas, and then you run up against a guy like Merab who dominates you 2 different fights. The second fight got you up out of there early. How many fighters have we seen in their career that there's been that guy that they couldn't beat that was the champion, and they just kind of peter out, or they go to another division and that's just it for their career because that guy, they couldn't beat him and that guy stayed champion? This is different because Piotr Yan, it was like Sugar Sean hired him. Piotr Yan already did the dirty work for Sean O'Malley and got Merab up out of there. And while whether you believe Sean beat Piotr Yan in their fight, or whether you felt like Piotr Yan should have won on the scorecards, that's a win for Sean already. So this is a rejuvenated Sean O'Malley, because now the boogeyman in his division, at least for the time being, is not holding the strap. He's not holding the championship. And there's a good chance that if Sean O'Malley beats Song Yadong, that they'll make that rematch fight between him and Piotr Yan, because I kind of think the UFC is going to keep Merab on ice for a little while, let him heal up, and then they'll give him his rematch for the championship, probably late this year. I think if Sean O'Malley goes out there, beats Song Yadong, and doesn't take hardly any damage at all, I think they'll run this back probably for the White House card. So I think that's going to be a super stacked card. They'll run it back, Sean O'Malley versus Piotr Yan for the Bantamweight Championship of the world. So in that sense, I think this is a green light for Sean. He goes out there and gets the win. I don't think Song Yadong is a good enough wrestler, has a good enough ground game that's really going to throw Sean O'Malley off after he's done had these 2 5-round fights, these 2 training camps where he trained for everything to face Merab. So I got Sean O'Malley to go out there and get the win. Let's move on. How about this? My guy, Waldo Cortez Acosta, stepping in the octagon with the Black Beast Derek Lewis, who is also my guy. With this, man, I got to go along with Derek Lewis to go out there and get the win. I know Waldo Cortez Acosta has been on a run, and he's the champion at heavyweight that we need and that we all deserve. It's who we thought Tom Aspinall was going to be, but he ain't. And no disrespect to Tom, I know he's still that dude. Get well soon, Tom. But nevertheless, man, Waldo Cortez Acosta, we thought was that guy. But man, when you look at these 2 together, Derek Lewis has been in there with the who's who and the what's what at the top of the heavyweight division and been there for years. He's fought everyone. And he's beaten a lot of them. He's never won the championship, granted, but he's been there. He's had a few title shots. And I just don't see Waldo Cortez Acosta. I don't think that he necessarily has a skill in his repertoire that he's elite at, that is going to throw off Derek Lewis. Generally, when you see Derek Lewis lose fights, except for like when he's fighting a guy like Daniel Cormier or somebody that's obviously a much higher caliber fighter, you know what I'm saying? It's usually when Derek Lewis goes into these fights with injuries or some sort of an illness that he doesn't disclose because he's just that tough of a dude. And he goes out there and then he's not quite himself. And then he takes a L. I've seen photos of him. He looks to be in some of the best shape he's ever been in. I think he understands with a major win over Waldo, he's going to be able, as long as he doesn't get injured or anything, he will also be able to compete at that White House card because it's being touted all the time that he's one of Donald Trump's favorite fighters. So I know the UFC wants to stack that card and they would definitely throw him on there. Plus, what fans? He's a fan favorite. Who doesn't like Derek Lewis? So I got Derek Lewis to go out there and get the win over Waldo Cortez Acosta. I think he finishes him. I think he knocks him out in probably the third round because Waldo has definitely got a chin. You can say a lot of things about Waldo Cortez Acosta, but one thing you can't say is he doesn't have a goat chin. That dude can take a shot, but there hasn't been many men that have survived those Derek Lewis shots. So I got Derek Lewis to go out there and get the win. Next, at women's flyweight, we got Natty Ice, Natalia Silva, stepping in the octagon with Thug Rose Namajunas. Let's be real, bro. I'm a huge Namajunas fan, but I'm also a huge Natalia Silva fan. That's my girl Natty Ice, you know what I'm saying? Bro. When I look at Rose Namajunas currently in her career, this is my take on it. I feel that when Rose's physicality, when her body was at its physical peak, when she was absolutely, footwork was the best, her jab was the best, her movement was the best, her stand-up style of fighting was poetry in motion. I feel when she was at the best during the years where she was beating Joanna Jędrzejczyk, when she was beating Zhang Wei Li, when she was out there making, just styling on women, I feel that mentally Rose was not matching what her body was doing physically. And I feel like mentally she probably had a little bit of imposter syndrome. She didn't really feel like that she should necessarily be the champion maybe. Maybe it was a heavy weight on her shoulder. She seemed like, yeah, she wants to go out there, make a little bit of money, be not necessarily famous, but be respected at her craft. But really, she wanted to go out there and live her life, a free life, growing things in her garden, giving to charity, she's a very down-to-earth, humble individual. And when you throw an individual like that in the spotlight and you're the champion and they're all gunning after you, we need you to go do interview after interview after interview, we need you to do this, we need you to do that. That's a lot for someone to take when you're more reserved, a little bit more introverted, and that's not really what you're looking for. And I think that was all playing around in her mental when she was out there dominating women with footwork that was boxing-esque. Just her footwork was amazing. So with that being said, now I think Rose's mental is a little bit sharper. And I think Rose realizes all the opportunities she had earlier in her career. And then she lost that title to Carla Esparza, and she's never quite made it back to that point. And now she's up a weight class. And I feel her mind is where we all wanted it to be when she was at her physical peak, but I don't think she's at her physical peak anymore. She deals a lot with a lot of injuries. It seems like her body's slightly becoming a little bit more frail, fragile. It could be because you're up a weight class fighting bigger women that are going to hit harder. It's going to be more physicality. And Rose doesn't have that imposing frame where she's like Diesel, or, she definitely built like a Kayla Harrison, but, she's not like a Jessica Andrade or anything like that. And so at 125, I just feel like it's not her best peak physical shape. Her footwork is slower. Her jab is not quite as crisp as it was. And I just don't think this is the same Rose, even though the mental is where we wanted it to be years ago. Tremendous take for a dude from Louisville, Kentucky. You know that's a good take. That's a Luke Thomas-esque take. Nevertheless, Natalia Silva wins this all day. Natalia Silva wins this all day, in my opinion. Natalia Silva is built different. Okay, she can impose herself on these women. She's got that physicality, but her movement, her footwork is different from Prime Rose, but she's not worried about moving the entire fight, sticking you with a few shots and continuing to move. Move. Hit you with a body kick. Move. Hit you with a leg kick while you stifle. Hit you with a right hand. Move. She doesn't care if the fans start booing or anything like that. Because when she explodes, it comes furious. It comes fast. It's a lot of kicks, low kicks, high kicks, body kicks, whatever type of kick she wants to throw. And you ain't ready for it. And then by the end of the fight, she's getting the decision and she's moving on. And in my opinion, that's what you're going to see here. Natalia Silva wins this and waits for her title shot against Valentina Shevchenko. That's what I got. I got Natalia Silva all day. Shout out to Rose Namajunas, one of my original favorite fighters from back in the day, but I just don't think she's quite there. You know, I just don't think it's quite that anymore. Her mental is sharp, but her physical, the body is not the same. It's not 100% like how it was at 115 pounds. Let's move on. Opening fight on the main card, Arnold Allen versus Jean Silva. I ain't gonna hold you, I got Jean Silva. There was a point in time where it definitely looked like Arnold Allen was gonna be that dude. And you look back at some of his earlier fights, they could not knock this dude out. He was durable, he was strong. His biggest issue was getting injuries between fights and training camps, and would keep him out of the octagon for a long time. And then I remember the fight that he had against Max Holloway. The beat down that Max Holloway put on this man on the feet was amazing. And the shots he was delivering to Max that Max took was amazing. But I just don't think this is the same Arnold Allen. And I think he's probably coming into this fight with injuries. I think his body can't handle his tenacity, right? And I just think he always gets injuries that keep him out of the octagon forever. And then when he gets back in there, each time he goes back in there, he doesn't look as good as what we saw in the past. And so I think Jean Silva goes out there and gets the win. I think he's hungry. I think he wants to prove a point. I think he made the mistake of getting too emotionally and mentally involved in that Diego Lopez fight. And now he's back. I think he's going to be back on his game plan. I think the fighting nerds probably are rejuvenated over the few losses that they took. And I think he's going to go out there and get the win over Arnold Allen. I don't think it's going to go to a decision. I think one way or the other, even if it takes to the third round, I think Jean Silva knocks him out. I think he finishes him. And I mean, outside of that, man, only other fight I'm going to bring up, there's a lot of good fights on here, but I'm not going to talk about all of them. What about Umar Nurmagomedov stepping in the octagon with Davison Figueiredo? Look, I got Umar Nurmagomedov all day. No disrespect to the great Figgy Smalls. I've always been a huge fan of Figueiredo. He's goated in a way. You know what I'm saying? He's definitely going to be a UFC Hall of Famer, two-time flyweight champion. He's outstanding, bro. But one too many injuries, one too many tough fights, strong, long fights against Brandon Moreno. And I think we're just seeing a shell of who Figgy Smalls once was. And I know that weight cut is too rough for him to keep making it down to, flyweight. So I just think you're not getting the best of him at 135. He's had moments, we've had glimpses, but I just don't see him going out there and beating Umar Nurmagomedov. I think this is a fight that keeps Umar strong in all of the fans' minds, in everyone's heads. And while they try to figure out what they're going to do with Petr Yan, hopefully a winning Sean O'Malley and Merab, they got Umar waiting in the wings. And I think that's just kind of what you're dealing with. Now, Umar's a much easier Dagestani fighter to deal with because he will stay active and he will fight frequently. So it can't be too long that they throw him in there with a title shot. I just think they want to figure out what's going on between Merab, Petr Yan, and possibly Sean O'Malley. So we'll see how it all plays out, but I got Umar Nurmagomedov to win this fight all day. So that's all the fights I'm going to cover. There's a lot of other great fights, a lot of fights, guys, that you want to see knock people out, like Atiba Gaethje is fighting. I definitely want to see that man knock somebody out. He's like a short, smaller, stout version of Francis Ngannou. I mean, Modestus Bukauskas is fighting. He's always good for a good knockout. Alex Perez versus Charles Johnson. I definitely want to see that. I'm actually picking Charles Johnson in that because I think one way or the other, if Alex Perez can even make it to the octagon, because he usually doesn't make it to his fights, I think Charles Johnson finishes him, because I think he'll find out one way or the other, Alex is going to find out a way to lose that fight, even if he's winning for the first 2.5 rounds. So that's what I got, man. We got MJ Michael Johnson fighting on this. It's a good show, man. It's a good show. I definitely want to check it out. So hope you guys check it out. We finally got MMA back. It's been like 5 or 6 weeks when you had nothing like that to watch. You know, we back. We back. We on Paramount. First show of the year. We ain't got to pay that $75, $85 price tag. We with it. You know what I'm saying? So check it out. Saturday night, T-Mobile Arena, UFC 324. Dana White cut me the check because I'm hyping it up for you. I'm doing your job for you. Like, subscribe, comment. And once again, I do want to thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.